the struggle kind of makes the experience that much more memorable. You could explain it to people, but until you really do it, I don't want to stress enough, you really have to want to do it. I mean, if you want to do something and then you take somebody that kind of doesn't want to do it as much as you, I can guarantee you will not have a good time.
I was like, well, if I throw a mic on, then I can help others the way that these people have all helped me.
Born in the heart of the Pennsylvania deer camp, with the help of experts, friends, and local legends, we bring you valuable knowledge and powerful stories for your hunting adventures. Welcome to the East Meets West Hunt Podcast with your host, Beau Martonik.
Well, we got it. I mean, it sounds like we got it figured out now. It just won't be with video. But Chris, I appreciate you coming on the podcast here and being able to talk to me. So we're just starting now. We've been on the phone for over an hour now trying to get the computer and the video to work, but I just don't think it's going to work.
No, I'm thinking it's above and beyond my pay grade. I'll tell you that.
That's why you like to go.
You talk to me like you sound like one of my kids. Like my kids are like, "Oh, Dad, it's easy." No, it's not. It's not easy. It's just do this. Just click this. Just click this. Click here. Do. It never worked out.
Yeah. Well, we gave it the best of my ability at trying to be a customer service person, and it just wasn't going to happen. But that's all right. We can. The important part is the talking through it here, and you and I had a phone conversation last week there and everything, and I was like, man, I should have been recording some of those stories there, but I appreciate you taking the time and coming on here.
Well, I don't mind doing it, man. I like to talk hunting for sure.
Yeah, so I guess Chris, to get started here, why don't you start by saying who you are, kind of where you're from, and then how you kind of got started into bow hunting, and not saying anything about your age at all or your ability with technology, but I think you've been doing it for a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely started out way before I started out back when the phones hung on the wall and they had a cord to them, and you had to come in your buddy's kitchen to call your mom and dad like it was, and you had to stick your finger in the rotary dial. And so, yeah, no, I'm 58 years old. I live in probably middle part of the state of Illinois, and down towards little bit north of St. Louis. And I've been pretty much, I got into bow hunting years ago. My dad he wouldn't let me gun hunt. So I wanted to hunt, and that was kind of my option, was to use a bow. And then I just kind of got in with a bunch of guys that's pretty much all they did. And, I mean, when I was younger, I definitely wanted to be super successful. And so I probably would have hunted with about anything. But, my dad just wouldn't, he'd take me hunting. He spent a lot of time with me and he'd let me go do it, but he didn't, the guns just weren't something that wasn't kind of in his wheelhouse, and he was always just a little afraid of it. So I didn't, when I started out, that was my option, so that was the weapon I got to use, was a bow. And I started out, shooting a compound, and back in the early 80s. And then I just got in with a bunch of guys that I started shooting leagues, and got in with a bunch of guys that all shot pretty much traditional bows, and, were bare bow shooters. Some of them shot compounds, but it was all pretty much a bunch of guys that shot instinctive, and went hunting with a lot of them. And, back when I was in high school, and just hung around with them, and ended up going out west. When I got out of high school, I went to trade school, and that was kind of the start. I mean, I've always pretty much been into traditional archery, and really for no other reason than that was all the guys that I would say mentored me or took me hunting. That's what they did. So, it kind of became what I did. I mean, I now it's just part of what I do, and I don't, it's definitely hard, to pick up a stick bow and go hunt animals. Is you're definitely stacking the deck against yourself. But I think I've done it so long and I've had enough success that I don't. I mean, hunting for me is, and it's, it may have started out a little different, but it's kind of morphed into I just like the game. I like the challenge. I mean, if there was no challenge to it, I wouldn't like it. So it's become a challenge, and I like to do it. I don't mind spending the time doing it. It does take a lot of time, but yeah, that's I guess the long and short of it. I again started out with a compound, did that probably for 4 years or so, and then probably since 88 till now, off shots, recurves, and I built bows back in the late 80s, 88, 89. I got into building recurves, and I built bows for probably 6 or 7 years and hunted with them, hunted with my own bows up until 2006. And then I started shooting bear bows, and I've hunted with them for, oh, shoot, probably 10, 15 years, and then just kind of switched off and just been hunting. I mean, there's a lot of good traditional bow builders out there, and there's a lot to choose from when you get into that, kind of that game, and I've shot some good ones. And one thing about recurve bows, they're all a little bit different. You get a recurve, and it's something else will come out, or you see something else, and it's like, oh, I want this, I want that. So most guys that got recurves, end up having a whole collection of different bows, but which can be a plus or can be a negative. But
Yeah.
I don't. Hopefully, I answered your question there. But
No, you gave me good background there. Starting starting out with just, bow hunting is what you did. That probably helped you as far as like that was your focus on this is what I have to hunt with, and this is what I'm learning to do it with. But, and I guess, I don't know, is it your company, Old School Bow Hunting? Is that?
well, I mean, to be honest with you, the old school stuff kind of. My daughter actually, a couple of years ago, I got a licensing deal with Bear Archery to put their logo on some quiver hoods that we basically made through in the 70s, 80s, 90s. There was a plastic cowled quiver that Bear had put out for a bunch of years, and then it kind of went away, and I went to him and asked him if I could remold it or try to basically make the replica of what that old quiver hood was, and did the hood. And then I was lucky enough to I went and talked to Selway about it, which Selway makes. I've used Selway quivers since I shoot back in the late 80s. Like, I've used them forever. So I've used their components, like all their quivers and their limb attachment system, and basically just adapted that hood to their hardware. So, it's kind of the best of both worlds, because Selway makes great quivers. They've never failed me. I've used them and used the rawhide quivers for years and years, and then we just put built a mold and molded up with the kind of the bare green hoods and put the old logo on it that they had back in the, for years, and just try to recreate that quiver. And I think I mean, not because I did it, but I think it turned out really, really well. It's real functional. Selway makes, like I said, terrific quivers. It kind of positions the arrows right where you want them. And it's just been a good, they're great people, and it's been good. But then to get back to the old school stuff, I had done a bunch of molded up a bunch of hoods and stuff, and I'm like, man, I want my own. Like I'd like to do a logo to put on those quivers. So I talked to a bunch of friends of mine and different guys, and kind of beat stuff around. And um, my daughter had taken some graphic design classes in school, so she helped me uh, kind of design a logo. And yeah, I mean, that's the old school bow hunting was just, I don't know. I mean, I've kind of at 58, I just embraced that I'm old school, and that's the way I do it, and it is what it is. Like I mean, after an hour of trying to get me hooked up on a podcast, it should be very evident that the PC world is not the world I live in.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that, other than when we're trying to do a podcast. But I think that's why you thrive in the places that you go. And what's from the people I've talked to that know you well and everything, and said that you have traveled basically all over the country and maybe the world. I don't know that, but to bow hunt and have been successful in a lot of places. When did you start like kind of going from hunting whitetails to venturing out?
Well, again, when you're younger, funds are always I mean, they're an issue when you're older, but when you're younger, it's kind of time and funds. So when I started in the late 80s, I mean, I was, in the early 80s, that was my high school years. And then once I got out of high school, I went to trade school. And once I went to I went to trade school for a couple of years, but, basically September through May, I was in school. So, didn't get to do a lot of traveling. And then the first year I got out, went to trade school and took plumbing. And so I picked up a trade. And then when I got out, I kind of always worked for myself. Like I've been self-employed for forever. And I worked, as a self-employed plumber. At one time I had 2 or 3, 4 guys working for me, but now it's just me and one other guy. And I like my time, so I work hard when I work when I can and try to get the bills paid and do this. But to be successful doing what I'm doing, with especially hunting with the recurve, I mean, you have to have you got to be able to spend a lot of time to do it. And I had to try to find a way to do that. Obviously if you had a job and you got 2, 3 weeks out of the year, vacation, that wasn't never enough for me. So yeah, I've been self-employed. That's kind of allowed me to set the schedule. But as far as the traveling, I wanted to travel early on. Like I can remember being in high school and reading different, there used to be Bow Hunting World, Bow Hunter Magazine, and Archery World, like the Fur Fishing Game. Like there was always magazines, and I'd go up and buy magazines at the store when I was in school, and I'd, read them and was always looking at them and reading articles and the old Fred Bear stuff, and just, Jim Daugherty and just Chuck Adams and a lot of the guys that were out doing stuff and traveling at that time. And of course I wanted to do everything. I wanted to shoot, I mean, what, I hunted whitetails because the whitetails were accessible to me, but to hunt other animals was always, that was kind of the goal. Like I just loved going out to Colorado and going different places and hunting. Went to Canada a lot. I haven't been. I mean, I've been a lot of places in the U.S. I mean, I've been, hunted probably phew, 35 different states, from whitetail to bears to elk. Just done a lot of hunting in the lower 48. I've been to Alaska 4 or 5 times, and actually done a bunch of trips to Canada. I've been to British Columbia 2 or 3 times, Saskatchewan, Ontario. Actually, I think the only um, Quebec is kind of the only. I think no, I hunted Quebec because I did a caribou hunt in Quebec. So yeah, so I've probably hunted
All the provinces there.
all the provinces in Canada and lower 48 and got up to Alaska. I mean, I've never been to oh heck, Africa or anywhere like that. And truthfully, I've always had a desire to go to Africa. Like I would love to go to Africa, but some of the other places I don't really like. It never really interested me. I mean, I did want to go to Russia, but just because I wanted to go bear hunt. Like the bear hunting in Russia was really a big deal back in the day, but it I think all that kind of got a little bit tougher and a little bit sketchier. That when I got to the point where I could actually maybe afford to do it. But I get to hunt a lot of. I mean, I get to hunt. I hunted a lot in the 80s. Obviously, I was in school, so I hunted a lot of whitetail. And then in the late 80s, maybe 80. I think 88 was my first trip to Colorado. So I went to Colorado in 88, which 88 was when I graduated from trade school. So the first when I got out of trade school that first summer, I ended up, going for 2 or 3 weeks out to Colorado elk hunting, and I did that every year. And then in the 90s, I started, 92, 93, I started going to several, I try to go bear hunting in the spring, go elk hunting in September, and then, that'd roll right into whitetail season. And then I always wanted to hunt bears. I mean, when I say bears, like I had shot several black bears in the 90s, and but the like grizzlies and brown bears and polar, like those were always kind of a dream hunt type of deal, like something that I saw other people do it, read articles, but never really thought I was going to be the one to do it. And I would tell different guys I'd go hunting with, friends of mine. I'd be like, man, I'd really like to do that. And I was um, on a moose hunt up in British Columbia with a friend of mine, a good friend of mine from around here, and we went up there with a guy from Montana. He was a saddle maker up there, and he was a bit older than us. Like we were probably in our 20s, late 20s, and he was in his 50s, which at the time I thought was, right now I don't think that's old. I'm 58, but at the time, I thought he was old, but we ended up booking a hunt. We went up there and we went moose hunting. And when I was on the moose hunt, I kept talking, I was talking to Bob Trezona was his name. I was talking to Bob about going. I said, man, I just love that guy. Again, it's something I really wanted to do, and you can dream about stuff, and you can try to, sometimes you got to figure out how, like it's things that seem impossible. You got to try to figure out, well, is there a way this can happen? And for me, I was like doing a lot of talking and talking to different guys and like, man, other guys have done it. It's got to be possible. How do I get this done? I didn't know how. When it comes to shooting, hunting grizzly bears and brown bears with recurves, number one, you really got to know who you're going with. And then a lot of guys just won't take you. Like, truthfully, they don't, you say, I want to book a grizzly bear hunt, and then tell them you're going to come with a recurve bow. They look at you like you got a eyeball coming out of your forehead. And I get it. I mean, it can be extremely dangerous stuff. It's especially when you got to get that close. And when I was on that moose hunt, Bob had said to me, he goes, man, I know a guy that's got a concession up in British Columbia. His name was Brian Martin. And he did he had a, stone sheep was kind of the big thing that guys would go up there and hunt. But, they'd hunt mountain caribou and moose and stuff like that. And he had some grizzly bears in his concession. He had 2 or 3 tags or what have you. He didn't have like a super big area, but he did have a burn in the area, and they hunted grizzly bears, and the bears would come out in the burn on the blueberries. And I got to talking to him about it. He's like, man, he says, you need to call Brian. You need to set this up. And Brian he was younger, but he was a go-getter. Like, he was, I've been fortunate enough to hunt with a lot of guys that are pretty hardcore, like extremely dedicated, and just kind of, they're not going to give up. They're just really, really dedicated to what they do, and half crazy. I mean, in all honesty, the thrill of the hunt. They were kind of all for it too. It's like, oh man, that'll be fun, And so he got me in contact with Brian Martin, and I remembered, talking to him, and I talked to him once, and I'm like, just kind of getting the details, and he was like, sure, yeah, we can go. We can, he just kind of laid it all out there. And then we got to talking about the prices, and I'm like, oh, jeez, I can't, and it was expensive. Like, I will tell you, it was. I got to talking to Brian about going on a grizzly bear hunt, and he was kind of all for it. And he's like, yeah, he says, we can, we can do it. And we started talking about what it costs. And truthfully, a lot of the expense is just to travel up there. You got tags, and then once you start getting into the brush, the bush plains and stuff like that, and the price adds up pretty good. The smaller the plane is, the more expensive the flight, truthfully.
Yeah, I can attest to that.
Yeah. So I got to talking to him, and I'm like, man, I really like to do this, but and it sounded like a fun hunt, fly in on an otter, and it was like 7-mile backpack trip, back into this old burn they had, just glass the burn, and when the bears would be in there eating blueberries. And so I'm like, oh man, I'd just love to do that. And so I kind of got to talking, and I got off the phone with him, and I said, I'll call you back. I said, give me about a week, so I thought about it for about a week, and I was trying to, again, just try to put together how I could do it. And I kind of come to the conclusion, I'm like, man, I can't do this next year. But I could put a plan together. I'm like, well, I can do it in 2 years. So I'll do this, and I'll send him this much, So I kind of got on a piecemeal deal, but I called him back, and I booked the hunt, and I sent him a little bit, to get my deposit, just try to, but it took me about 2 years to do it. And I, I mean, the whole time I was, sending them the money and paying for it, it's like for 2 years, that's all I pretty much was thinking about, was like going on that hunt. And he had a couple guys, I think Pat LaFemin, he had a couple of guys that hunted a couple of years, the years that I didn't go, and they had some close calls. Like they had, one guy actually missed a bear, and then when he ended up shooting him on the second shot, he hit him in the shoulder blade, which is really not good. And the bear kind of knew what was up, and he ended up charging him, and Brian ended up having to shoot him. And so they had some, definitely some close calls, but I still wanted to go do it. I'm like,
Yeah.
that sounds like a lot of fun. And so I ended up, took me 2 years to uh, try to get everything in order. But in 2003, I went up there and hunted. It was like, I don't know, 14, 16 days. Like it was a super, super long, and it was a tough hunt. Like it was living out of a backpack for 10 days and, sleeping under. I mean, it was fun. Like I just ate it up. Like I just loved it. Like I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. And I mean, it's one thing to see big bears or grizzlies or brown bears, seeing them. I mean, you go to the zoo and you watch them, and it's neat, but it's a whole different game when there's nothing between you and them. Like it's really exciting. And again, I mean that hunt is kind of it's a kind of a thrill seeker hunt. I mean the challenge is something I think a guy wants, but the not knowing what's going to happen at that, and they're close. I mean, I ended up shooting. I shot a bear in 2003 with Brian, and I shot that one at like 12 yards, and then after I shot that one, which that was an interior grizzly, I rebooked with him when I shot that bear. I said, "Hey," I said, "I want to go again," and so I rebooked it. I'm like, "Oh, if I got to sell my truck, whatever I got to do, it's like I'll figure it out." And so I rebooked a hunt with him. And one of the other guys that had went, he didn't shoot one, and he wanted to book for the following year, and I had already booked the spot. So then when I got home, I had an opportunity to go to Alaska and go brown bear hunting. So I ended up going brown bear hunting in 2004, and then so I shot that grizzly in 2003, and then I wanted to shoot all the bears, quite honestly. Like I wanted to shoot a black bear, grizzly bear, polar bear, and brown bear. Like that was kind of my goal. Like a lot of guys want to shoot, grand slam a sheep, and I mean, I'd love to shoot a sheep, and I'd love to go sheep hunting, but I don't know. I mean, bears were just something that really, really intrigued me. So in 2003, I shot a grizzly bear in British Columbia, and then in 2000 or that would be the fall of 2003, and in the spring of 2004, I shot like a Pope and Young black bear, and I had shot several black bears in the past, but I shot my biggest one in the spring of 2004, and then in the fall of 2004, I shot a brown bear, and then the spring of 2005, I shot my polar bear, and then the fall of 2006, I'd shot another grizzly bear up there with Brian, and then I ended up going to Alaska in 2006. 2006. 2006, and then and then I went to Alaska and shot a grizzly bear, and then I went back in 2008 and shot another one.
Oh,
So I shot all a grizzly bear, a brown bear, polar bear in like the span of 2 years, and then after I shot my polar bear, I um, started shooting. Those were all with bows that I built, and then I went and started shooting bear bows and just other stuff. But yeah, 2000 was I did a lot of bear hunting in 2000. For big bears, and then I mean I shot some elk moose. I mean, I've shot a lot of things for sure.
Yeah.
And but 2003 through 2008, man, I was really pretty much that was the that was kind of what I did. Like I was bear hunting 2003 through 2008, and I really wanted to like my goal now is I'd really like to shoot a really good elk. Like I mean I'd love to get a 330, 350, and I've gotten close, and I you know the last few years have been pretty good, but pretty good. You know, I've had good spots to go elk hunting, and I like it. You know, I like elk hunting is enjoyable too. I mean, there's some excitement there. I wouldn't say it's the same as excitement. It's the same excitement as bear hunting, but the elk are a lot better to eat. I will tell you that.
Yeah, it's uh hearing you say that, like with elk, it's elk has been like my big thing that I've been focusing on for the last 8 years or so, and just like it's one of those. I feel like I try to go after. I try to chase things that I'm not good at and I want to get better at and learn. And elk hunting was one of those things. It's a very humbling experience to go out there, you know, by yourself or with some buddies that aren't from there to just figure it out. And it was 2022 was the last time I was elk hunting. You know, at the time of recording this here, I'm leaving in about a week to go elk hunting. I got 2 elk tags this year in my pocket, but in 2022 I shot somewhere between a 350 and a 360 bull, and I hit him in the backstrap, and that just absolutely crushed me. I hit a branch at 18 yards and deflected up into the backstrap, and it was just like an absolute heartbreaker. But I've just never thought. I just continually think about that moment over and over again, so I can relate to you there. But you know, the way you're talking about the bears, you know, bears are something that I never really had a whole lot of interest in hunting. Is we have a ton of them in Pennsylvania. We have some really big bears, but it's just there's never really a great way to hunt them other than if you're doing drives are basically the big way of how people hunt them here. I mean, they made it better so you can bow hunt them for longer than 3 days, and you know, throughout some of the archery season there. So but I'm usually kind of deer hunting at that time. And then I went to Montana in the spring of 22, and I shot a boar there in the mountains, and I was just like, man, this is a lot of fun. And now this was with a rifle, but then I was talking to a buddy of mine who helps me. Kyle Hansen. He helps me book some of my Alaska hunts that I'd been on. So I went on a DIY caribou hunt, and then I went on a moose hunt afterwards. But he's been on a couple grizzly hunts and just keeps talking about. He's like, man, I love moose hunting, and that was kind of my thing that I loved with Alaska at first. He's like, but something about hunting bears, it's just like a whole nother experience. And I cannot imagine having a stick bow in your hand and getting that close to it. I'm sure that rush is just like incredible.
Yeah, I mean I mean that's really I think that's when I went the first year, 2003, I really thought like, oh, it'll be a one, and it's like, well, I really wanted to do it, and I shot a tremendous bear. Like the bear I shot was just a smoker. Like it was it was the biggest thing. I mean, it was a nice big, he was like 17, 18 years old. What they aged him at. They pull a tooth and they send you a little card and tell you how old the bear is, and when they sent the card back, it was 17 years old. I'm like, holy crap, man, that is. And he was big. Like he was just a big, big, big slob of a boar. But I've shot a lot of, I mean, I've shot a bunch of black bears, and I like to hunt black bears, and I've hunted them pretty much every way you can. I've spot and stalked baits, hounds. Like and they're definitely fun to hunt, but I mean, that next level, like when you go to grizzly bears and brown bears and stuff, they're a whole different bears. And I mean, I don't think I've shot a grizzly bear. Well, I know I haven't. I haven't shot a grizzly bear farther than, I think the farthest one I shot was like 18 yards. So they've all been like, I mean, I shot one at like 10, one at 12, like one at maybe 15, but I've shot all my bears really relatively close. And that is, and I, some of the hunts, I mean, I was self-employed, so I'd buy trucks and I'd write them off and I'd do this and I'd do that. But I also sold stuff too. Like I remember I bought a brand new Dodge pickup truck and brand new, had it all paid for. And I didn't have the money to go on a bear hunt. I'm like, oh man, I told my wife, I said, hey, you care if I'm going to sell my truck? And she's like, she goes, what for? I said, I want to go bear hunting. And she's like, well, that's your decision. She kind of said it like, well, you're stupid, but yeah, if you want to do it. And I'm like, well, yes, this makes perfectly good sense to me. And, at the time, I wish I had the money to have both, but I didn't. But I will tell you now, and I have I mean, the older you get, you start, you look back at things that you did when you were younger. And quite honestly, it was, if I had it to do over again, I probably would have sold more stuff because I can always buy a new, I mean, I got a new truck right now. I can always get a new truck or, that is something you can kind of always do. But, I mean, some of the hunts I did, I mean, now most of that stuff has got unattainable for me. Like it's just, I mean, brown bears and grizzly hunts and stuff like that. Like it's up in the $25,000-$30,000 range. It's crazy. Like I don't know how the working man does it actually. Like that's and really across the board. I mean, when it comes to, I mean, I've done a bunch of, go do it yourself and draw a tag and I do kind of I kind of like it. I mean, I kind of like the challenge. Like when it comes to elk hunting and mule deer hunting and doing different things, I like the challenge of just kind of trying to figure it out on my own and doing it. But the guided hunts have become almost unattainable, really. I mean, I don't have. I mean, I wish I did. I mean, and I probably would have a lot more money if I wouldn't spend it all, years ago hunting. But
Yeah.
it is what it is. I mean, I don't at 58. My wife. We've had this discussion in the past. She's like, man. I said, man, I wish I wouldn't have done this. Wish I would have done that. She's like, ah. She goes, I'm glad you did. She goes, that way you. And I truthfully am glad I did too. Like, you can't really. Like I'll remember the bear hunts, and I mean, I shot on one of in 2003. I had shot this grizzly bear, just a tank of a grizzly buck. It was just, man. I mean, I was on cloud nine for days after. Like, I mean, I, I I was just ecstatic. Like, I mean, just everything about it. And I shot it, you know, I mean, we were like 7 miles in and we shot it. We ended up having to, we stayed there all night, getting it skinned out and, I remember hanging the hide up and we built a campfire. And I mean, we were just out. I mean, we were so far away from civilization, like you just couldn't imagine. And, we got up the next day and we packed it back to our like spike camp. And then the day after that, we got it back to the lake. And when we got back to the lake, I had a moose tag. Um, and so we got back to this lake and there was a little Indian, like an outpost cabin that they flew us into on the plane. And there was like a Lund boat, with probably a 10 horse kicker on it. And we took that boat across the lake. And then we backpacked up and over kind of through this little pass to get to this burn. And then when we come back out, the boat was there, and we got in the boat. We took the boat back to the cabin across the lake. And when we got back to the cabin, it was, getting towards evening, and I can't hear really all that well. Like I can't hear that well. And there was a Brian. He goes, man. He goes, there's a moose. He goes, you hear that moose? I'm like, I don't hear that moose. But if you say there's a moose, then let's go moose hunting. And so we got in the boat, and again, this was across the lake. So we got in the boat, and we got in there, and we took that boat across the lake, and got over on the other side of the lake, and we got out, and we started just kind of working our way around. I mean, we had to shoot. We probably had to go like a quarter of a mile, you know, along the lake edge, and then I got to where I could hear it grunting, and I'm like, wow. I mean, I'd been moose hunting before, and I actually killed the Shiras moose in Wyoming. So I did a little bit of moose hunting. I wouldn't say I was an expert moose hunter, and so we're going along the edge of the lake, and we got around this one little bend, and I could really hear him, like he was just like we were right on top of him, and we could hear him grunting, and so we tried to, Brian started calling, and he goes, go get set up. And I'm like, go get set up. I got him like, so I was walking down this trail, and obviously it was a game trail, and it was the easiest spot to walk. It was pretty it was an easy spot to walk. So I'm like walking down this, at this time it's a game trail. I'm like, man, I'm on a pretty good game trail here. So I'm walking down the trail, and I kneeled down, and as I kneeled down, I could hear that moose, and I looked up, and I could see him, and he's walking, and he's just kind of rolling his rack, and he's just in a trance. He's coming right. He's probably 45 yards out. And the more I was, I'm like, man, he's coming. And I was looking at the game trail I was on, and I was just kind of following it to him. And I'm like, I think we're on the same. I think he's going to come right down this trail I'm on. So I got behind there was a couple of trees off to my left, maybe 4 yards off the trail. Like they were big old pine trees. And so I got behind them pine trees, and I was looking, there was 4 of them. They were pretty big trees. So I got behind one, and that moose just kept coming and coming. It was coming right to us. I'm like, dude, he's gonna come by me at like he's gonna come by me at like 4 yards. Like this is, I'm like, well, I mean, there's close and there's too close.
Yeah.
There's close, and this is too close. And I'm like, man, how do I pull this off? Well, I was looking, as I was looking, I turned around and I put my back to the tree. So I put my back to the tree, and I was kind of looking around the tree. And as he was coming down the trail, I was kind of inching around. This tree was big. Like it was, man, it was probably 30, 40. I mean, it was a huge tree. Like I couldn't wrap my arms around this pine tree. Like it was big enough to hide me. And I just was staying on the other side of the pine tree. And I was trying to wrap around, kind of ease my way around that tree as he was coming down that trail. And he comes down that trail, and I had my back to the tree, and I can remember, I'm like, I got to get my bow drawn. So I kind of drew my bow, and when I drew my bow and he was walking around the tree, I just leaned out from that tree. And when I leaned out from that tree, there's a moose at like 4. Like I'm like, how do I miss this? Like it was like shooting a VW bug on stilts at 4 yards. I'm like, how am I going to miss this? And and truthfully, the close shots, you can actually screw them up as easy as you can screw up a long shot. You know what I'm saying? Like you definitely got to still pick a spot, concentrate, and try to pull it off. But your confidence level is really high at that distance. Like a blind man can almost make that shot. You don't have to practice a lot to hit a garbage can at 4 yards. So I ended up shooting him, and it was just a perfect shot. And Moose runs over. He actually ran out into the lake, and he run out into the lake, and he got out there, and I knew it was a good shot, and Brian, he knew it was a good shot, so we got over there, and that moose was like, we kind of got over to where we could see him, and we could see him standing out in the lake, and he just stood out there for a minute or few. I mean, it was a perfect double lung shot, and he stood out there. But when he tipped over, man, I remember the moose, like he went totally underwater, and the only thing that was sticking out was a horn, like one side of his horn was sticking out. And it was like, this moose was a good one. He was a 62-inch moose. Like, he was a tremendous moose. And I'm like, what are we gonna do now? Like, what? I don't quite know how I'm gonna recover this thing. But we had some rope in the boat, and we ended up, I went out there and got down to my skivvies and took the rope out there and just kind of waded out to him, and we wrapped it around his horns, and in the water, he kind of floated a little, like we could kind of float him a little bit in the water, but we never did get, we could never get him. We got him up to within like 2 or 3 feet of the bank, and then we went back and got the boat and brought the boat up to him and spent most of the night, trying to get him. We had to take him apart, front quarter, hind quarter, meat, and then the neck meat and everything, and then we could, as the more we got him whittled down and broke down, the more we could move him around, and that's what we ended up doing. We ended up putting them all in a boat, and I think we got done, and that night we were doing that, the northern lights were just spectacular. Like, it was unbelievable. Like, we were butchering that moose, and the northern lights were going, and the sky was just, I mean, it was like alive. Like, it was the neatest thing I ever seen. And we got them butchered up we got them all the quarters and everything in the boat about 4 a.m. And then so we got everything in this little boat, and I thought, this is a great idea. And I was like, this is great. Throw them right in the boat, and we're, going to tool across. And the lake was dead calm. Like, the lake was it was like a mirror. Like, it was like glass. Like, there was no wind. It was gorgeous. And with those northern lights going, it just, like, it was, again, killing stuff is great, and I want to be as successful as most people do, but a lot of times it's kind of the other stuff that happens on the hunt that people don't get to experience. I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean,
Yeah.
again, being successful is what, I mean, people go to be successful, but for me, it does. And the older I get, the more that stuff means to me. Like, I like it. Like, I like, I mean, whether it's whitetail, I like to hunt. Like, I don't really, again, the old school, I guess I've just kind of accepted, like, I am old school, and there's probably a lot of things I do that are, maybe there's a better way, maybe there's a different way to do it, but I like what I like. I like it. Like, I just like to hunt. Like, I like to hunt with my recurve bow. I like to hunt. I like everything about it. Like, I like being out there. I like the challenge of it. I like the, the hardships. Like, I mean, if you went and shot tremendous animals every time you hit, what separates you from the next guy? Like, it just, it's like, if there's a challenge, it's just, and I love that challenge. And again, I think that's what makes all those, when you are successful, it just makes those experience all that more memorable.
Well, I
And
mean,
anyway,
oh, no,
go
no.
ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I mean, and going back to what you said earlier, about maybe should I have done all these hunts? Would I have been in a better position here or there, or whatever? It's like that that 401k being padded wouldn't allow you to see those northern lights and be able to see that and have those experiences that you'll remember for a lifetime. Not saying that saving money is not important, but being able to prioritize having those experiences. Most people don't have that, and I think that's awesome the way that you set that up.
Well, it's I mean, and it is. I mean, you got to definitely get. I mean, I probably went through life not being super responsible most of my life, but I've been I've if I'd have done it different, yeah, financially, I guess everything would have worked out. But I will tell you, the older I get, the more meaning there is for like all that stuff. Like I just absolutely, I just absolutely, um, I can remember, we're doing this podcast, and so I'm thinking about different things and I tell you about the bear I shot in 2003. Well, I can tell you about, you know, at this point, I've probably um, I shot a couple elk in the early 90s, and then I kind of got away from it, started bear hunting, and spent a bunch, and then I kind of got back to it. But, to this point, I've probably shot 10, 15 bulls. And I can tell you I mean, and not just bulls, but white, whatever it is. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be all the trophies. It's just all the animals. Like I can recount all my 99% of all the deer I've shot, and elk and moose and bears, and the big ones and the little ones. It's just they're all kind of special in their own way. Shooting a good whitetail is actually, I shouldn't say that. Shoot. I mean, everybody wants. People want to shoot good animals, and I get that. And the older I get, probably the more I chase bigger animals, just because the littler ones don't. It's not that they're not there was a time when all that was a challenge, and it was a lot harder, and now it's it's not as like I don't know. It's hunting has become, seems like it's become different, the older I get. Like I don't really need to kill it just to kill it, if that makes sense. I
Yeah,
mean, I think when you're younger, guys are out, and I was very much like I've always been extremely driven. Like I'm like the best thing a person could tell me would be, you can't do that. Like if you'd say, well, you can't do that. Well, you can't do that with that recurve bow. That's like those were, that was like, there's nothing that drove me any more than telling me that I couldn't. Now, if you told me, hey man, you can't paint your fingernails very good. Well, I don't want to do that. So yeah, you're right. I can't do that. Or you can't, you don't, I mean, if I want to do it, that's a big drive. If I don't want to do it, it's like, yeah, yeah, you're right. I don't, yeah, because I got no desire to do it. But when it comes to hunting, if somebody's, and they did that with the bears, it's like, well, you can't shoot one of the bears with your, well, it's like, well, other people did. Why can't I?
yeah,
Well, that you can't do that. Like I love that. Like there's nothing that drives me there's nothing that gives me any more of a, like I love that challenge because I want to do it. It's like, well, I want to do it. You said I can't, so I really want to do it. But
well, yeah. I mean,
but I think the older I've got, again, the challenge of and I see it more in the deer hunting and the stuff that I get. I mean, even elk hunting, like I've let a lot of elk in the past 3, 4 years go that I would never have let go 10, 15 years ago. Like never, like not even a thought. And I've let deer go that I just, there was a time when there's no way that I would let a deer like that walk. And quite honestly, I think that the letting them go actually is has truthfully helped me. Like I spend a lot of time deer hunting or just hunting, and the more time you spend around animals doing what they do, and just, I mean, the more time you spend around them, kind of the more you learn about them.
Yeah.
If you shoot everything that comes in, you don't you can learn a lot just by being around animals, whether it's whatever it is, I mean, just watching them. I mean, and again, it's been a long time coming, and it's been a lot of time spent in the woods doing it. And be nice if you could, somehow convey that message to guys, because it definitely will help you. But
Well, I mean,
I
the years that I've spent where I've been unsuccessful, and like could talk about that Montana elk hunt that I told you about here a little bit ago. I'd spent 21 days in the backcountry there, and I ended up coming home and not filling a tag. What I wanted to fill a tag 100%, but I tell you what, I learned more about elk behavior in that time frame than I did in the previous 4 years of doing it, just from the amount of time that I spent there and around animals, to around elk, to just understand their behavior and how they worked and how they did things. And there was obviously some issues I had with the closing the deal portion, but it was, as you getting that experience is allowed me, going into this year, hopefully being like, all right, now I feel a lot more confident about it. And I've learned so much about these animals where, in the previous elk hunt that I was on, that I shot one on the first day, it was like, I didn't really learn that much. Now I'm not saying I was perfectly happy with that, but you don't learn as much on those hunts as you do the ones that last longer. And what you're saying about, you now with being more selective and not as trigger happy with things, you're able to learn more. You're able just to fully just experience that from beginning to end.
Well, I think, you know, I don't know, how do I say this without like offending people, because it definitely will be offensive, but it's not, I mean, you can go fishing, you catch a fish, you don't like it, you throw it back. You go hunting, it's a zero sum game. Like it's the animals are, dead. Like it's kind of one and done. I've been around guys that have shot stuff, and then they're like, they shoot it and they're not happy because it's not big enough, and this, that, and the other. And that seems very, like, I don't know if I can really, like, that's what, why would you do that? Why would I? And I find, I found myself in that position. Like, I get around animals, it's like, man, there's a deer, there's an elk, there's a, get around animals, but it's like, and I will tell you some, again, if you like, I used to not be like, I'm probably more picky on whitetail just because that's what I get. You have got the opportunity to hunt the most of, but when it comes to, other animal, like if I go hunt something that I've never hunted before, I'm not picky. Like I do not consider myself a trophy hunter in any way. Like if I'm hunting something and that's the animal that I want to, that's what makes me happy, then that's what I'll shoot. But if it doesn't, like if I look at it and I'm kind of, well, I kind of, I don't know. It's like I put the brakes on, because I just don't. It's like, I don't. I mean, I've shot animals. I've shot deer that, I've shot them, and then once I get out, I go get them, and I'm like, I never want to have that feeling of, well, what was the reasoning for doing it? Like, why did you do this? Did it, if I didn't get, feel like it was a challenge, or it was something that, that made me happy. It doesn't, that kind of just didn't seem right. If that makes sense. Like, I mean, I don't, again, I don't, I'm not a trophy hunter. And if you've never, never, taken, an animal, or you've taken a bunch of them, like I know guys that just shoot a ton of stuff, and they're happy with the doe today and a doe tomorrow, and fine, if that's, knock yourself out, if that's what, I have nothing against hunting, but it is a sport, and it is, to me, it is a, like, most, I don't, I mean, I love elk meat, I love deer meat, I love the kind of the rewards of, getting game animals, but I mean, let's be honest, I'm not starving, I'm not, I'm not, it's not a do or die deal for me that I got to have the meat. Like, the meat is a bonus, but it's really not. I mean, I don't go deer hunting because I just because it's not. It's kind of all about the. I just like it. I like to go in the woods. I like to try to figure deer out, try to figure animals out, try to call them in. The whole, kind of the whole process. I mean, I just like it all. I like, whether, I mean, getting something is great, but sometimes the not getting something is, you get lifelong memories from, um, not being successful. And then when you are successful, to me, it means a lot more to you. I mean, we live in an age now, and I'm not going to get on a social media tangent, but but I, you asked me when I started. Well, literally, I started when, probably, just after, Mal Bell invented the telephone. Like I can't. I mean, the only people that ever knew what I did, if I was successful or wasn't, was my friends, my neighbor, like, it was a very small, now, instantaneous, the whole world knows what's going, it's like you got all these people, or all these, social media to me is just kind of, I mean, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, or be negative on it, but it's not right. Like, people don't, and, the reality of it is people go see stuff I mean, at 58 years old, I know what I'm looking at is probably what the reality is behind what I'm seeing. And it's not whatever, like, most people go see that, and it's like, well, why can't I shoot a 180, or why can't, like, everybody else, like, it looks so easy, but you never see you don't see the struggle, or the effort, or whatever that most people have to put into it. And, a lot of situations are different. I mean, there's guys out there that, got thousands and thousands of private, highly managed acreage to hunt. Well, it's not the same as a guy that's got 40, 50, 60 acres to hunt on his grandpa's farm on the weekend. So, and you got to have access to big deer to shoot big deer, or big animals, period. Like, a lot of guys draw elk tags, and they're going to areas that, at best you're going to shoot a raghorn bull. Well, that's great, but you can't shoot 400s if 400s aren't there.
Yeah.
So, again, people, I think there's a little, I don't know. I mean, people don't
It's just
look at the reality of that.
yeah, what you're saying is like it's hard to, like, when you're looking at social media, it's hard to look at it and you see three guys in three posts that have these, these big bull elk, but not knowing the background behind it. And if someone's, new getting into it, and they're out struggling, running around on Colorado public land trying to find a bull, and it
Almost, here's what I'm trying. Here's what I'm saying is 99.999% of social media is total bullshit. That's pretty much what I'm trying to say. Like, yes, you're exactly right. Like, if you go out to Colorado, and you go out to Colorado to public land, and you take your bow in the woods, and you shoot a elk. I don't even care if it's a bull. You have probably accomplished more than than most of the guys that you see online, or most of the bulls that you see online that are just world records. Like you have. Like I've been around a ton of guys that in the industry. Like I've seen enough of the industry that it just it doesn't really, again, it doesn't attract me. It doesn't impress me. And I really don't care. Like I think it's sad, because I think there's a lot of guys that I think there's a lot of guys like me that I mean, I think a lot of people want to go hunt, and they want to, they want to be successful. And you know, again, I've done it all. I've done some great things, and I've shot some really good animals that I'm super super impressed with. But I've also shot a lot of deer. I mean, I've shot a lot of deer, does. I've shot a lot of animals that are not, they're not record break animals, and there was a lot of challenge in trying to do, collect those animals, and they are, rated as, kind of, they're not going to impress anybody. I mean, the first buck I ever killed in my life was like a 6 pointer, and it was like I shot a 495-inch whitetail. Like I was just ecstatic. Like
Yeah.
took me 6 years to do it. I mean, 6 years. I hunted whitetail deer for 6 years, and one day this 6 pointer walks by, and I say a 6 pointer, I'm talking a dinky little bitty six, but I'll remember it, the rest of my life. I mean, I was just ecstatic getting that deer. I mean, I've shot some does. I've shot a lot of animals that were not, I've shot the first bull elk I ever shot was a 4x5, and it was by all means a raghorn. But it took me 8 weeks of hunting to do it. Literally, I went to Colorado for 2 weeks for 4 years to try to pull that off. I mean, it's a raghorn bull that is not going to score, and I've shot cows, and I've shot animals that are, and they mean a lot to me, and I think, I mean, I think that's kind of what hunting is. And
Yeah.
I feel like people would get a lot more satisfaction out of it if they weren't trying to, there's always going to be somebody that's got better places to hunt and got more money than you do and can do that. And, and on the social media side of it, you always see the 1 or 2% of the top, the top, animals, and it looks easy. I mean, it looks, somebody posts up a picture, look what I shot. Well, it looks easy, but it's just not reality. I mean, I have found myself kind of falling into that trap. Like I had, I had some friends that thought that was really a good idea. I needed to get on the social media, but it wasn't a good idea, and I had to go to counseling and get off of it as fast as I could. But I've kind of fell into that trap. Like I'd be, in October, October, like the end of October, you'd be sitting there and you're looking, it's like, man, look at that deer, look at that deer, look at this. Like, and it's like, man, I stink. I'm a terrible hunter. Everybody's shooting big deer but me, and look what everybody's getting, and poor old me. But it's not the case. Like, I'm like, this is then I did fine. I mean, I might not fill tags when everybody else filled them, but I got opportunities and filled tags, and it's like, you're doing just fine. But looking at that stuff, it's again, I don't know how the mind works, but man, psychologically, if it can bring me down, I can see where a guy that, or someone that doesn't have as much experience, or is getting into it, or just kind of, getting into it, that some of that stuff kind of becomes their reality, and it's just not the reality.
Yeah, no, and I can completely understand that from all accounts. I mean, I actually just talked to another person about that. It's like, because when you're the issue with it is like when you see, especially if you've been hunting hard, you've been hunting hard, you're doing it, and then all of a sudden you see everybody else having success, and I've talked about this, like I said before, but it's like you look at that and you're like, man, I suck. Like, even though like you like when I look at myself, or I look at others that are, usually pretty consistent with getting it done. It's like they're going to get it done, just never know what time it is. But you're seeing such a small percentage. You're seeing the highlight reel on social media, and it can, yeah, psychologically it can definitely mess you up as far as that goes uh with putting you like, oh man, I'm not very good at this, when that's not really the reality of it. Oh, it might be, but not always.
Well, it's not. I don't think it's, again. It's a, you know, I mean, I don't I don't really think that I know anything special, or that really I'm like I'm truly a hillbilly. Like I don't, I've just spent. You have to spend a lot. I mean, if you want to be successful, and again, I kind of talk into the stick bow world because that's about all I know. But if you want to be successful, doing hunting with a recurve, stick bows, especially, you have to be extremely persistent. And sometimes you don't. I mean, my parents, bless me. My mom used to tell me when I was younger that I was the most bullheadedest kid she ever knew. And when she'd get mad at me, she'd tell me, she'd say, you're the most bullheadedest kid I know." And I think it's been a blessing, truthfully, because that me being bullheaded has contributed to 99% of my success. Like I don't, and I think that's, you got to have, my dad used to tell me you got to want to want, and you kind of do. Like you want to shoot a good deer, or you want to shoot an elk, or you want to go do some of that stuff. You have to want to do it, and then try to figure out a way to do it, and then kind of put everything you got into doing it. Like I don't, I don't, if I could count up all the days that I've hunted, since I started, and then I said, okay, I've hunted, X amount. This is all the time I've spent in the woods hunting, and here's the animals I've shot. It's probably it's most people would be, you spent that much time and that's all you've shot. Like that's really the way it would be looked at, because it's a lot of, like, but I think people see, again, they see the exact opposite of that. They see these animals, 35 years, whatever, since, the early 80s, they look at, man, you've been hunting that long, and look at all this stuff. Look at the animals you've shot. Well, it kind of looks impressive just because it's, you know, 35, 40 years of hunting. But if you look at all the time that I put in it, I don't think it looks impressive at all. It's like, man, you're terrible. Like you spent all that time, and that's all you come up with.
Yeah, I know, and I mean, it's funny even hearing you say that, just because before I met you through the phone, we met through a mutual friend of ours, Jason Red, and Jason, he's been talking about you since I've met him, and he's like, oh, my buddy Chris, like he's an absolute killer, and he sends me, he sent me last year a couple whitetails he shot, and just like has always sent it, and it just, again, that's an example even there where it's like the outside looking in, it's like, man, does this guy just every time he walks in the woods just shoot stuff?
No, I mean it's absolutely the like, I mean it's I mean I have really, really close friends. Like I have got, I don't, I'm not really a guy that I don't I did younger. There's a very few guys that I can hunt around. Like I've hunted with some guys that I kind of get along with, and I can kind of share the woods with and I can hunt, but I really can't. Most people wouldn't like to hunt with me, and I don't really want to hunt with them. Like, it's just because I do take it extremely serious, and I always want to do, like, whether it's right or wrong. It's like I got an idea of, where I need to sit, what I need to do, kind of how I want to go about it. Now, does that work all the time? And the answer is no, but I have to make the decision. So, I guess I don't play in a sandbox well with others when it comes to hunting. But I have a lot of friends that, and they know it, and we don't really hunt together, but during the season we'll talk, and we're always talking about what'd you see, what'd you do, this, that, and the other. But we don't. It's not like we get up in the morning and head to the woods together. I don't really have guys that I per se hunt with, but I do have a lot of friends that hunt, and then some of them they're good hunters, they're dedicated, and they do hunt. But I do find that a lot of them they can't wait for deer season to get here, and usually it's they can't wait for it to get here, and then once the rut's coming in, and then the rut comes in, and then the rut's over, and it's usually, I find it's those like 3 or 4 weeks that they like kind of really hit it hard. But before our season comes in the 1st of October, so 1st of October through like mid-January. Well, that's 3.5 months. I mean, I got till January, from October 1 to January 17th, deer season's in. Well, they've pretty much, there's probably 2 to 3 weeks that they really hit it hard. And then they're kind of done. Like once gun season comes in, it's like gun season comes in and it becomes late season hunting, and it's just not, the rut's over, and they I don't want to say they give up, but they hunt a lot less than they do, during the rut or during prime time. Whereas I probably log in more hours in December and January than I do in October and November. Like, it's just kind of, it's like, I like to hunt. I mean, I will hunt the rut. I like to hunt the rut, and I do hunt it. I do spend a lot of time, hunting in October, and more in November. But man, December, like I love late season, and I've shot a lot of deer, during late season. There's a lot less of them out there. It's harder to try to, like, it's not as I don't want to use the term easy, but I personally think it's harder, but it's easier to, I think, get on deer once the rut's over. Like they're a little more, like, if you can find them, you got something to work with.
Yeah.
The rut is extreme. Like the rut's great if you're sitting in a stand and, love crazed buck comes running by you and you shoot him and he's chasing does all over the place. But it's kind of, and I always kind of called it hope and poke hunting. Like, you can kind of go out, deer are just on the move and they're just moving and they're doing their thing, but you can't, I mean, you can sit in a stand one day during the rut, you see a bunch of deer and a bunch of big bucks, and oh, it's great, it's great, it's great. And the next day, nothing, because they're gone. Whatever doe was in there is either cycled through or they've moved, whatever. Like, it doesn't, just I've seen it many times, and you can sit and sit and sit, you don't see nothing, and all of a sudden, again, you have a day or two that's just spectacular. But I get it, and I mean, I enjoy spending time out there at that time of year, but it does seem like the later in the year has been more consistent for me, because once you find them, then it's like you really can pattern them or try to figure them out a little bit better.
Yeah.
And there's no, you actually have a lot less hunting pressure. People aren't, not as many people out there, and they're not getting bumped and moved, but
Yeah, you have
But
the.
I think everybody should everybody should hunt the rut. Like I'm not encouraging anybody to hunt late season.
Yeah, you're like I like keeping that to myself.
Well, late season is, I mean, it can be tough. I mean, I mentally, it's, and truthfully, the late season hunting it's actually a lot more, like I spend a lot more time actually scouting than I do actually hunting it. Like I'm in the woods and I'm hunting, but it's like you're trying to, put the pieces of the puzzle together. And again, late season becomes, a lot, food, crops, around here we have a lot of ag. So, what are they on winter wheat? Are they on, and weather plays, but they seem to be more, um, and the colder it gets, they just, man, if you can get on them, they don't move. They kind of stay in an area and they'll start herding up, and kind of getting together. But
Well, yeah, I mean,
most of them, I'm lucky because most guys have used up their vacation by December, so it works out good.
yeah, and that's where the self-employment side helps out in that realm.
Well, I mean, I went to school. My dad wasn't a plumber. Like I didn't pick plumbing because I wanted to plumb. I picked plumbing because I knew guys that were like pipe fitters and they would duck hunt, and them guys, they'd work 6 months out of the year and they'd work on their duck blind and duck hunt like the other 6 months, and they all made pretty good money. They were all in the union, and I'm like, well, that's what I need to do. I got to get a trade so I could. That's what I want to do. I want to work 6 months out of the year and hunt the other six. But it doesn't exactly work. I mean, you do get a little bit more time, but it's almost like you pay for them. It's like I got to work double time in the summer, and when I'm working, it's like I'm working double time so I can, you know, pay for the time that I'm not working. But but no, it's being that has definitely allowed me to the time thing. But yeah, that's, I don't know. Again, I guess that's with we live and die by the choices we make, and those were the choices I made.
Oh no, I mean I can relate to being from someone that had worked in manufacturing for a while and then going to self-employment. The difference is like when you're not hunting in self-employment, you gotta be working and doing things as much as you possibly can to have to make that money so you can have that time off. So there's definitely trade-offs there. And I talked to some buddies of mine. One of the best hunters that I personally know, my buddy Johnny. I mean, he's has an excavation business, and he's been doing it that way for close to 30 years now, of where he works, and after sometimes he has to work into October a little bit, and then after that he's off from then all the way through the end of January, and he's just hunting nonstop. But he's like, my sacrifice is that I could be making that extra money and be living a little more comfortably there, but I want to hunt. And and those are the trade-offs. There's never, everyone's got the same cup that's, or for the most part, everyone's got the same cup that's there. It just depends on what you fill it with.
Well, it's not. Again, I mean, I just always like hunting. To me, or hunting has always been just it's my hobby. Like if you get into, there's guys in the industry, there's guys make a living off of it. Anytime you make your living off of something, I think it does take a little bit away from what you do. But it's, for me, it's always been my hobby. Like shooting, you're not going to become famous being a stickbow guy. I can tell you that. Like it's very, I mean, there's guys that have, but this day and age, it's not, you're not, it's number one, again, it's extremely tough, and we live in a a day and age in this, especially the hunting industry. Like you got to be like I don't know. I mean, you got to be like a rock. You got to be a total rock star every. Like you got to the pressure to perform and the pressure to be successful is just, and it's very tough to do. Like it's very, very, very tough. I mean, and it's just I think the world we live in, and I don't know. I mean, I've seen enough of it, and again, I've kind of come to the point that I do what I do because I like to do it, and I do enjoy doing it. Like I don't, I like, I mean, I like to be successful, and I have the drive to be successful, and when I am, I kind of, it is what it is. Most people are, they shoot animals or they shoot, they want to show people, and that's total human nature. Like I'm no different, but I think again the figuring out why you do it. Like, if I think some people do it for maybe to impress others or to, like, I think I kind of feel like that's wrong. Like if you're doing it for that reason and it doesn't really, like, if it really floats your boat and it's something you really, really like, whether somebody you're going to get accolades for it or you care what anybody thinks and you like to do it, then that's the reason to be. I think to be out and to be doing what you're doing. Not for the, because again, it's a very tough. A lot. I mean, look at social media. Like you could shoot a 190 today, and tomorrow like you shot nothing. Like it's it's like you get down the feed list pretty quick. It's like, what'd you do today? What'd you do today? But
Honestly, I think that is that is something that I hope anyone is listening here, especially younger people that that listen to that again, because I think that is such an important thing, and figuring out why you want to be doing it, and keeping that as a focus, and trying, because I mean the thing is, like, you're talking about the hunting industry specifically, but honestly the whole world is like that now, where everything is so fast paced and moving and constantly filling schedules and this and that, where figuring out why, especially something like hunting, that for 99.9% of people is a hobby, of like why you want to do it and why you like to do it, and keeping that in the forefront of your mind.
well, I think again, it's easy. It's probably, a guy that's 20 would probably listen to me and say, well, he don't know what he's. I mean, I did it, when I was 20. I didn't think people that were older than me knew what they were talking about. And hell, maybe I don't. I mean, I'm okay with that. But most people, like the older, like they kind of come to a point where they kind of. I mean, hunting is again, it's something I enjoy. All my friends. I mean, everybody I know, especially in the traditional world, like most all of my friends. That's where I know them from, and they're my friends. Like they're friends. You go out and you hang out with them. You talk the same talk. You talk about this. You talk about that. You got stuff that kind of on the same. You have the same outlook, and I go to a lot of them traditional shoots and stuff, and I'm always meeting different guys or this, that, and the other, and we're usually busting each other's chops and just having some laughs and having fun, and that's all part of it too. I mean, you get in with a group of guys that you just like hanging out with and spending time in the woods and setting tree stands or whatever, that's a big part of it as well. I mean, that's it's all. And again, if you like to do it, then you just like to do it. It just doesn't matter. But if you most things in life, if you're doing it there's kids that go play baseball, and parents played baseball and they love baseball, and their kids go play baseball. Well, if the kid doesn't want it, they don't want to do it, then it usually doesn't really stick. And hunting or whatever it is, whatever your hobby is, if you don't really want to do it, or you're doing it for any other reason than for yourself, you probably aren't going to be that great at it. You're probably really not probably going to be wishing you were doing something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, I've never had a lot of I've just never had like that's kind of like I played softball. There's things that I did, but I never did them to the extent. It's like I like everything took. When I played baseball in school, I'm like, and I wasn't great at baseball, but I was good enough to make the team. But man, once that stuff started interfering with me going hunting, dude, I'm done. Like I'm like, well, no, I'm not doing that. So I've never really had, my hobby is kind of always, that's what it's always been is, hunt. I like to bow hunt. I like to hunt with, with the equipment that I hunt with, and that's what I enjoy doing. And so there's really not room for, bass boats. And I mean, you can have other hobbies, but
to do them at a high level, or having like those goals like you do with bow hunting. I mean, especially like I said, you take hunting is one thing that's hard enough. You take bow hunting, that's another level. Now you're doing traditional equipment. That's a whole nother level. So if you enjoy being successful at it from time to time, it's gonna take a lot of time. There's no shortcuts around that.
No, it takes a lot of time. And again, if you don't I just just like to, whether do I like being wet and cold and miserable and, nah, not really, when I'm doing it. Usually after the fact, I'm like, a good hard day of hunting. It was like, yeah, that was a lot more fun than going to work for sure. But I don't mind. I'm not saying I like it. I mean, I've spent a lot of time on the, side of the mountain and in the rain and, cold and miserable. It's like, man, this stinks. Why would you want to do that? But usually once I get warmed up and get dried off, it's like, yeah, let's go do that again. Like, it's ridiculous, really. It's like, man, why would, like, I quite honestly understand, like, people that say, oh, I really like to do it. Like, I know guys that are like, oh, I'd really like to do that, or I'd really like to go elk hunting. They go do it one time and they're like, oh man, that's just not for me. And I get it. I'm like, yeah, it's not all, it's not all glamour.
No.
A few years back, I went to Colorado, and we were in just pretty much, it was an over-the-counter unit. Like, it was not a special unit at all, but we got up there. Just before we got there, they had like 8, 9, 10 inches of snow, like a bunch of snow. And we were going to pack in a few miles, and we got up there, and, I'm like, why don't we wait till the snow melts, because usually those snows like that come in, and a day or two later, they're gone. And there was 3 of us, and one kid was a bit younger than Scotty and I were, and actually it was Scotty's son. And he's like, well, we need to get up there. I was like, okay, let's go. And we got up there, and Scotty and I, we kind of hung around camp for the first day or two. But you know what? Even on that hunt, like, we got up there and we were digging snow out to set up our tents. And it was, first day was a little bit miserable. Second day was a little bit better. Some of the snow started burning off. But man, we sat around and drank coffee and talked. And after a day or two, that snow was gone, and we hunt. I mean, I came so close to killing an elk. Like, we hunted our freaking tails off. It just, I don't know. I mean, again, I think, but I'll remember that forever. Forever. That's, going up there and spending time and hunting with a bunch of guys that you just enjoy hunting with, and we came close, I mean, we almost sealed the deal, but yeah, the struggle kind of makes the experience that much more memorable. And you can explain to people, you could explain it to people, but until you really do it, and again, I don't want to stress enough, you really have to want to do it. I mean, if you want to do something and then you take somebody that kind of doesn't want to do it as much as you, I can guarantee you will not have a good time, because a person that don't really want to be there is going to really be making life difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Well, Chris, I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me here. I'm glad we got everything figured out and we're able to have this conversation. But I think this is a much needed one podcast, and I think that people listening to this as it comes out right before a lot of hunting seasons kick off, I think it talked about a lot of the right things in here to kind of help on the mindset side of it too, as you're coming into the season. So anything else you want to kind of end with before we end this?
No, we might have beat around the bush a little, and hopefully everybody took it the way it was meant to come off. But I mean, it's like I said, at the end of the day, it is a hobby, and I think that's what people got to look at. I mean, it's a hobby, it's a sport, it's not it's kind of one you kind of compete with yourself on. It's like you're trying to, which is probably why I've always worked the best. Like I've really never been a team player, and hunting. So hunting's the one thing you can kind of do. You kind of live and die by your decisions, but you got nobody to blame but yourself. So you got nobody to argue with but yourself, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
But no, man, I appreciate you having me on, and like I said, hopefully everybody, I don't mean to offend anybody if I did. But.
No, I think your message came across pretty good. No, I definitely appreciate that.
Well, cool deal, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, share it with your buddies. Leave us a rating, a review, and subscribe. If you want to check out more content like this, there's plenty in the links below. We truly appreciate having you guys along with us.